we're going to talk about now presenting the results. So basically you want to think about this as if you are telling the story of the air pollution in the air and the sources of that air pollution. So we're going to talk about how you create and modify and export the reports and charts in TEISS. We're going to talk about how to structure your emissions inventory report and what to include in it. So basically, you want to give enough information in your emissions inventory so that a reviewer could duplicate the results. The basic idea is that if somebody else could follow the process that you use to get your data, to import it, they would basically come up with the exact same numbers. You want to include a summary up front. Even if you look at emissions inventory report that Angelique put together, it is not extremely long, but you could see it has a lot of headers. So it has an executive summary, and then it gets into these various sections that we'll talk about. You want to ensure that the people who need to understand sources of air pollution can understand your report, and obviously, unless they have TEISS installed on their computer, they're not going to be able to see what you see. The elements of what constitutes an emissions inventory report. Well, first of all, you have to talk about what year. Remember, we're basically talking about a snapshot in time of the emissions from all the different sources. So what year? 2008, 2011, 2013. The geographic area covered. So you might want to be kind of specific about that and talk about whether or not you're including a buffer zone and why, if there are particular sources of interest that caused you to have the buffer zone be 50 miles outside of the boundaries of the reservation. You need to talk about the pollutants that your emissions inventory report includes. So those are pollutants like the criteria pollutants, hazardous air pollutants, and for every section, for every point category, you're going to have to go through these different pollutants because it's important to know the different source types and what pollutants are coming from what. So these are, in general, some of the headers that you might want to include. Keep in mind that the more section headers you have, the more formal your report looks, and also the easier it is to review. It's a lot easier to review when you've got a header and then 1 or 2 paragraphs and a header and 1 or 2 paragraphs. Make sure to have a list of tables and a list of figures because you probably will have a lot of those, and having a lot of tables and figures makes your report easy to review also. And then especially if you use a lot of abbreviations, make sure to include a list of those, especially for somebody like maybe on tribal council or somebody else who isn't familiar with the terminology, PM, filterable. If you have a list of abbreviations somewhere either at the very end or at the very beginning, that's helpful. Keep in mind that TEISS does not write your report. There are some places, though, where you can copy from the TEISS text, and you can go into the field itself and select some text, and some of those fields can take a lot of text. So if you've extensively used the IPP or the QA/QC tabs where you describe what you've done, you can copy from that into the Word document. TEISS does export maps, which is very useful, and you can do that the fancy way or the easy way. Graphs and tables also, and you can use these in your report. So here is a map from the Confederated Tribes of Colville, Chris Ray's emissions inventory, and this was very easily produced in TEISS by selecting File and then Print. And in summary, be sure to include all the elements. Sometimes, unfortunately, reviewers just look and see, oh, did they have these headers? Great. Nobody who will be reviewing your emissions inventory, I'm sure, but it helps, again, to have the headers there that people expect to see, where they look for different parts of the information. Format the report to look good. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be long. It could be less than 20 pages long. And remember to write to your audience and tell the story of the air pollution on your land.